Everyone loves a survivor, and in these programmes I'll be tracking down some of the best. Places and people with great stories to tell about the way we used to live. I'll be visiting fancy houses, no-nonsense cafes, high towers and underground treasures. I'll be discovering why they were built and how they've managed to survive in the modern world. First up, I'm heading for Jermyn Street, one of London's swankiest addresses. The street was built in the 1680s, and its elegant houses were highly coveted by members of the aristocracy, who liked being close to the royal court at St James's. By the mid-18th century, the upper rooms of many of the houses here had been converted into gentlemen's chambers, and their ground floors turned into shops. This really was the place to be seen if you were a well-heeled 18th century gent. And few sported fancier footwear than this Jermyn Street regular, Beau Brummel. According to legend, he polished his boots with champagne. The great dandy would probably recognise some of the names above the doors here today, but only one of these fine establishments can boast an unbroken lineage stretching back more than 250 years. J. Floris's Perfumery has stood on Jermyn Street since the 1730s, and I'm here to meet John Bodenham, the great-great-great-great-great-great-grandson of that man, Juan Floris. John.
Suggs.
What a rare and tremendous thing.
Welcome to Floris.
The 8th generation of the very family that founded this shop.
Indeed.
John, my first question is, what on earth is a perfumery doing in what is the very essence of the gentleman's world, Jermyn Street?
The business was set up originally as a barber here in Jermyn Street. And obviously that was the main trade initially. But he started to make basic preparations like lavender water, brillantines for the hair. And it was that really that led on to the fragrance side.
The shop's interior doesn't date all the way back to the 18th century, but it does boast a rather impressive pedigree of its own.
In fact, everything you see here was from the Great Exhibition. They had to be slightly modified, as you'll see, because the floor isn't straight. So a little bit of carpentry required there. But all solid mahogany, handmade, and really as good today as they were when they were purchased.
I'm just the latest in a long line of sophisticated fashion icons to call here in search of some high-class pong. Beau Brummel himself was a regular visitor, although he rarely paid his bills on time. And every famous customer had their own favourite scent.
This is Malmaison, which was a favourite of Oscar Wilde.
Excellent.
He used to come into the shop.
I have nothing to declare but my genius and my eau de cologne.
He used to come in, apparently he had his...
What was he up to there?
I know, it's very flamboyant fragrance.
Flamboyant? It's taking all the hairs out of my nostrils.
There's another fragrance here which is quite interesting, number 89, which is named after the number of the shop here in Jermyn Street. And it was a favourite of Ian Fleming's. The original James Bond. So obviously it's James Bond himself.
It's vodka, it's martini, it's olives, it's shaken, it's not stirred. A whiff of gun smoke. That's the extraordinary thing, isn't it? How evocative smells are. I'm not a big eau de cologne man myself, but each one of those is very evocative of a different period. Of course, you don't have to be famous to come here. The shop welcomes customers from every walk of life. Although rather sadly, they've stopped ironing the pound notes before giving you your change. If you can't find a fragrance on the shelves that takes your fancy, you can always turn to resident perfumer Sheila Foyle, who'll create your own bespoke fragrance from up to 4,000 different ingredients, of which here there are just a few. The tradition of making customised scents goes all the way back to the company's founder, Juan Floris. Over the years, the perfumers here have used almost every natural ingredient imaginable. Once a scent has been created, its unique formula is written down for safekeeping. The recipe book today is entrusted to Sheila Foyle, the first non-family member to guard the florist's secrets. Sheila, there are up to 4,000 different smells, of which you must be au fait with most. But how would you go about judging what the person may or may not want if they're not too sure themselves?
Well, first of all, I like to find out about the person. So, can you remember what fragrance your mother wore?
I can remember the smell of it, but for the life of me, I can't remember what it is.
How about your first fragrance you ever bought?
The first cologne that I bought was Eau Sauvage. And I remember I liked it because it smelt of lemons. It just was fresh, and it wasn't really the idea of making myself smell better. It was the idea that I was smelling something that was going to refresh me.
Let me just try you with this one.
Yeah. Melons.
Yes.
Yes. Black currants. Is it?
It's black currants.
Excellent. I think I could do this.
And strawberries.
And strawberries and raspberries.
It's fruity.
Oh, very fruity.
Fruity base.
I think be very careful going out in the street wearing this one, eh? If you don't want your bum pinched.
It's more
That's a
suited
good
to
one.
the ladies.
It's more suited to the ladies. Fabulous.
Certainly.
It usually takes several months to create a new scent, but Sheila's rustled up something for me in double quick time. All I have to do now is think of a suitable name for it. I wonder.
J. Floris, what a classy and indeed fragrant survivor. 277 years and counting. All because the lady loves Survivor.
Suitably fragrant and refreshed, I'm heading to Wisbeach in search of a different type of brew. This elegant Georgian town sits in the middle of the Fens, an area of land which was drained in the 18th century for farming. One of the main crops they grow around here is barley. And where there's barley, there's beer.
There's been a brewery here on the river for more than 200 years. Back then, the water was so polluted, it was safer for the good people of Wisbeach to drink beer instead.
Well, that was their excuse anyway. For the past 100 years or more, the same name has hung over the door of the North Brink Brewery. The Elgood family mashed their first brew here on October the 11th, 1878, when John Elgood took over sole control of the business. If he stepped back in the premises today, he'd probably still feel quite at home. Today, the Elgoods team is brewing one of their best-selling ales, Black Dog Mild. They've been up since dawn, as everything here has to be done by hand, the old-fashioned way. Looks like someone's seen me coming. Actually, he isn't hiding. He's cleaning away the hops that went into yesterday's brew. That's carted away to feed the lucky local pigs. Meanwhile, today's ingredients are waiting next door, fresh from the farmer's cart. Alan Pateman's been production manager here for over 2 decades.
And we have here some 50-kilo bags of the malted barley. So here are the seeds, and inside each of those is the starch that we need and all the fantastic flavours that we have.
And in layman's terms, that gives you the sweetness of the beer.
That's it.
And the bitterness comes from the hops.
The bitterness comes from the hops, yeah. So these are the hops.
Sight, isn't it?
Yeah, these are the hop flowers, and you can see here the hop cone, or the flower of the hop, and the smell, if I just break some up for you, because you don't want to smell of hops all day.
It won't be the first time.
Possibly not, but have a smell of that.
Excellent.
Obviously, all those tasty ingredients have to be protected from intruders. So Elgoods have introduced a high-tech mobile pest limitation solution.
And here's a very important long-term employee here, one of the rodent operatives, Spot. How's it going, Spot?
Elgoods prides itself on doing things the traditional way. Some of the brewing equipment here is more than a century old. These rather impressive copper trays were once used to cool the beer.
What we used to do is to put the whole of the brew from the hop back, the hop works, is thin layers on these 2 trays. The louvers behind us in the walls are opened up to let the cold air come through, just like blowing over your saucer of tea if it's too hot. It's the same principle. Here we are at the fermenting.
Elsewhere, the old kit is still going strong. These timber casks have been used to ferment beer for years.
It's alive, it's alive.
We hope it is, yeah. This is our best employee. You've met the cat, but this is the one that does the work, really. Our yeast, and the yeast is bubbling away, slowly turning the sugar into alcohol.
Well, I'm feeling like the fella from that dreadful joke who fell in and was drowning, but he had to keep getting out and going to the toilet.
He died of exhaustion, didn't he? Yeah. Yeah, so what you see here is a crust of yeast on the top, millions upon millions of yeast cells, gradually, as we say, producing the beer.
Once the beer's been brewed, it's kegged up and shipped out to pubs around the country. Tucked away behind the brewery is another interesting survivor. This rather beautiful garden once belonged to another long-established Wisbeach family, the Peckovers. They were Quakers and active in the temperance movement, so I'm not sure how they'd have felt about having a brewery on their land. It's been restored to its original splendour by the Elwoods family.
That's right. The only thing we did know was that the Peckovers planted all the trees for here and for Peckover House, and then when our family moved to the brewery, they created a garden around the trees. So from our understanding, it's been here for about 200 years.
I don't know about you, but gardening always gives me a thirst. I wonder if there's anywhere around here you can get a drink.
I've met the family, had a lovely tour of the brewery, and now here I am in the on-site pub. Better taste the wares, eh? Hope it's travelled. Cheers.
Coming up next, a design classic in Hampstead and some good old-fashioned fairground entertainment.
I don't know about you, but I think I need a little lie down.
This is the AIESEC building in Hampstead, North London. It's more than 70 years old, but it still looks modern today. It's run by the Notting Hill Housing Trust. I've come to meet Kate Davis from the Trust to find out what it's doing here.
Well, I think when the people who built it, which was Jack and Molly Pritchard, they bought the site and they were going to put 2 houses and a nursery on the site. But they met a young Canadian architect called Wells Copes and suggested that he might work with them on designing something really extraordinary for this site, which is what he did, based on the principles of the Bauhaus movement, this great iconic building to modernism. In fact, one of the things Agatha Christie said, and she lived here for a while, was it was like a great ocean-going liner. It really was quite an unusual site, I imagine, and it still is today.
The AIESEC was built as an experiment in minimalist city living. Aimed mainly at young creatives who were struggling to buy a flat of their own, the whole place was designed to foster a sense of community. There was a bar and an on-site restaurant, run by this chap, Philip Harben, who later became Britain's first TV chef. In order to make the most of the space, the building's designers made bespoke furniture for each flat.
And are all the flats the same size?
No, there's a variety of flats here. There's some really tiny ones. There's some bed sits, studio flats, and they start at about 200 square feet, and they go up to about 700, which is the right at the top, the penthouse, that's 700 square feet. And they've got a big terrace where there was apparently nude sunbathing during the 30s because it wasn't overlooked. So that was one of the attractions. There's another reason why people were turning up to have a look round.
What a shame that that's gone and the bar's gone. Can't have everything though.
The bar may have gone, but some of the original interiors have survived intact.
If we have a look in here.
Isn't that dinky?
This is the dressing room, and all your worldly goods would be stored away in the wardrobes. Rather beautifully designed, and again the D handles. And there's a little wash basin here where you'd wash most days. I don't think people bath quite as much as we do now. And the lights were designed specially. Okay. The whole furniture was supplied in the housing. So you got the lifestyle as well as the place to live. And the kitchen's even more charming, I think, because it is a tiny, tiny little kitchen.
It sure is.
Everything that you need. It's got the baby belling, and that's actually a fridge, Suggs. You could store a beer or two in there.
Probably one. Excellent, look at that.
Yeah.
The dream of the AIESEC was short-lived. After the war, the building went into terminal decline and at one point was close to demolition. As little as 7 years ago, it was a derelict, empty dump. It was then that the Notting Hill Housing Trust stepped in. They took over the running of the building from Camden Council with a plan to provide affordable homes for London's key workers.
They are all partially retained. People can't buy 100%, so that they'll be kept forever, providing homes for the same kind of people that the Pritchards wanted to help. So there's a kind of symmetry, not just in the building, but in the social purpose.
Following the revamp, the AIESEC is now Grade 1 listed and regarded as the most important residential modernist building in the country, which means that homeowners like Billy J have a chance to enjoy their own taste of city living, 1930s style.
Never ever thought I'd be lucky enough to live here, because I've known it for years, because I lived around the corner, and it was a horror. And lots of people wanted to see it restored because they knew what it had been like. It was a good quality building in the beginning, and when they restored it, they kept everything. The handles, the lighting, they reproduced the windows, they reproduced the doors. The only thing they've updated is the kitchen, and I'm certainly very happy here. And everybody's happy here.
So the future's looking bright for the AIESEC, this beautiful ocean liner without funnels. And what's more, the principles upon which it was founded are not a million miles away from the way it's run today. Nude sunbathing apart, of course. Let's face it, it's the traditional rides that put the fun into Funfair. The carousel, the helter-skelter, the Wurlitzer, and the rotor. You don't remember the rotor? You know, it's stuck to the side. Sadly, over the years, a lot of the traditional activities have bitten the dust. Although there weren't too many tears shed for the demise of the bearded lady.
But how about this for a show? There was a time when every fairground worth its salt had a wall of death display like this one. They first became popular in the 1920s, and they were still going strong in the 60s when this film was made. It looks pretty dangerous to me, and he's not even wearing a helmet. The man in the saddle was Roy Cripsey, a legendary name in fairground history. Today his mantle has passed to a new maestro. Ken Fox once sold tickets for the great man, but now runs the whole show himself from a base on the East Coast. Today he's getting ready for a performance in Suffolk.
Right, Ken. Right there, Ken.
Hello, Suggs. Nice to meet you. Welcome aboard.
Before I dig deeper into Ken's story, I have my own little piece of family history to clear up.
But I'll tell you a funny story, actually. I was talking to my mum earlier in the week about coming up here, and she reckoned she did a bit of riding on the front of one of these bikes in Manchester when she was a kid.
That would have been at Bellevue, and that would have been between 1949 and 1956, and it was possibly on that machine. That machine there used to be man Harry Holland and Pete Catchpole, who had the walls to death.
Is it really that small a world? Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. But this bike here, my family and all the people who work for me call that Ken's bike, but I call it Pete's bike, and Pete called it Harry's bike. And I've actually got photographs of that in the 1950s with ladies on the front. Whether it's your mother or not, I can't be sure.
Well, she said she didn't last for an awful long time. She said one time she was going around, one of the fellas ran out of petrol as he was going around and was about to collide with one coming the other way, which don't sound the most professional way of going about it. But
she should have stayed there. There might have been an extra opening for a real rider.
Let's have a look at that photo then. No, I don't think that is my mum, but it's definitely Ken's bike.
This is a 1924 Indian Scout. It was built for the American police force with a left-hand throttle, so that they can draw the guns in the Roaring Twenties in the times of Prohibition and still shoot the gangsters.
Excellent work.
Can I start it for you?
Go on.
Right, because you like a bit of the old music, don't you?
Well, I've heard music described as some things, Ken, but that's something else. I mean, without being morbid, Ken, have there been a high amount of fatalities over the years?
In the early days, there was a lot of accidents. Every fairground had one or two walls to death, so the competition was higher. They did more riskier acts. They took lions up, they took bears up. They had two riders going this way, two going that way, and it got to a stage where it got silly. Now, with there just being us and one other firm that goes out part-time, the competition isn't so high, and you can draw it back a little bit. You don't want any accidents. The audience don't like an accident. If they see an accident, they go white and they go pale, they feel faint.
I'm sure they do, especially if it's coming anywhere near them.
This is a real family business. Ken's sons Alex and Luke both learned to ride bikes as youngsters, and now they're part of the act.
And do you remember that very specific moment, though, when you went from the banking up the wall for the first time?
Yeah, it's an exhilarating feeling. It's more thrilling than scary. Than a lot of people think it's going to be scary, but because you've been training that hard, it's a thrill that, no, I'm on there now.
You gotta make sure you don't go too hard, because obviously you're gonna hit the cable.
You're going to fly off.
Yeah. Because when you're riding, if you're not looking at your front wheel, you can't actually see what the position of the wall you're actually on the wall.
But enough of the chat. It's show time. I'm a bit of a biker myself, I'll have you know. I've had one on and off for 30 years or more, and I've experienced some pretty hairy moments. But in this particular instance, I'm very pleased to say I'm not going to be in the saddle. I'm going to be watching it from up here. Watching Luke put in a few final practice laps is his mum, Julie. I wonder what she thinks of her boys following in their dad's exhaust fumes. So I notice there's one member of the family who's not joining in.
No chance. I'd be scared stiff.
And how did you feel about the boys getting into it?
I'm very, very proud. I was very nervous when they first started learning, but very proud now, seeing the three of them together.
Because I didn't realise, I mean, you've got to be brave, but you've also got to be tremendously skillful.
Yes, yeah.
My mouth's too dry to speak. That was incredible, yeah. I've never seen anything like that. Although I'm not done yet. Keen to show the boys who's boss, Ken decides to go one better than the youngsters. Look, no hands. In fact, don't look. And just as I think I've seen it all... Well, I don't know about you, but I think I need a little lie down. Well, I've got to admit, I was feeling a bit wobbly watching it up there. But I've been outside, had a breath or two of fresh air, and do you know what? I don't reckon it can be that difficult. What, it's the end of the show? Are you joking? Shucks. Next time on Suggs' Survivors, I'm getting hot and steamy in Norfolk. Still got to be back at King's Cross for 7 o'clock. How long will it take me?
About 3 weeks to go down there.
And taking a spin on an Edwardian racing bike.
This is the bit you want to see, isn't it? See if I can stop or not.